YT Industries is a German brand that sells mountain bikes directly to the consumer. I ride a Jeffsy version 2, which was released in 2019 as an aggressive trail bike with 140mm of travel, and then it was up to 150mm of travel both front and rear for the newer models and recategorized as an all-mountain bike. In this review I will go over the components that I have on my bike, including the ones that I changed. Then I will talk about the geometry of the bike, my own impressions of riding it, and what I like and dislike about it. The frame is very burly looking, full carbon fiber featuring a low slung top tube, which is great for fitting a long dropper post. It includes internal cable routing tubes, which makes pulling the cables through easy when the time comes to change them. It has a geometry flip chip to steepen or slacken the head tube angle by half a degree. There is space for a 600mm water bottle by installing a magnetic proprietary fitlock holder and corresponding water bottle. The handlebars are aluminium race face turbine and originally came with a length of 800mm, which I cut down to 780 to fit me better. The bar feels plenty stiff for an aluminium bar, no complaints in this department. The grips are ODI. They are rather on the hard side when it comes to comfort, but I like them because they clamp well on the bar, don't rotate, and feel pretty accurate when maneuvering the bike, and they fit my hands perfectly. The suspension fork is a RockShox Spike RCT3. I have been happy with how the standard version of the fork performed. However, I switched it from air to a coil version by installing a ACS3 coil conversion kit and upped the travel to 150mm. After the change, it's more linear travel, has better small bump sensitivity, and mid-stroke support. For me, it's a complete game changer when it comes to suspension performance. It does feel more on the soft side. A neat feature is that it has a bump stop, which can be controlled with air pressure and make the last 35% of the travel more progressive and more resistant to bottoming out. Originally, the bike came with a RockShox Deluxe RT3 air shock. Overall, it's not a bad shock. I changed it to a RockShox Super Deluxe coil shock, the same situation as with the fork. It's super sensitive to small bumps and feels plush. Overall, the coil suspension feels like magic carpet eating up bumps. The brakes are SRAM Guide RS3, which came with a 200mm rudder up front and wide 180 at the back. I changed them for a 220 up front and 200 at the back for a little bit better power and heat dissipation. Overall, they are good brakes and can stop me well without problems. I feel that they have very good modulation, so in tricky sections when I need to control speed they perform really well. Although when going warp speed, I could use a little bit more bite, but overall still very good brake. The original dropper post was the E13 TRS Plus with 150mm of drop. It was good until it stopped working. Then I sent it back to YT, had E13 repaired, but decided to put a 210mm one-up component dropper post on instead because of constant issues with the E13 and also because I could benefit from the extra drop on the 210 dropper. The one-up works well, and I think it's one of the parts which it really makes a big difference when it comes to mountain biking downhill. I couldn't recommend more to have one. The saddle is a standard YT, nothing fancy, and I think it's personal if you like it or not. I use it and the sides rubbed off some of the material, but overall it's not bad. The drive chain is a SRAM GX Eagle, and in my experience it's bump proof. Shifts and performs really well. I had it through many varying conditions and put around 4,500 kilometers on the group set, and it's still going, no complaints. It's annoying to drop a chain in the middle of a good downhill or flow section, so I put a E13 chain guide on, which is about the only E13 part that I like. It's neat because you can open it to access the chain if you're doing maintenance. The wheels from E13 did not last long. I had constant broken spokes and also a cracked rear rim in several places around the spoke connections, which is a common issue for E13 wheels. I sent it back to E13 and they replaced it, no questions asked. But I still decided to install a pair of Hunt Enduro wide wheels with a 33mm internal width, 32 spokes up front, 36 at the back for a more stiff back wheel and compliance on the front. The hub also has more engagement points and feels like a robust wheel set. Time will tell if it resists my jump casing and smashing into every possible obstacle on the way. The first generation of the E13 tires on the Jeffsy felt heavy and with a high rolling resistance. They performed good in loam, but lacked in almost all other trail conditions, and felt especially bad in wet weather and mud. So currently I'm running a combo of the Maxxis Assegai and Dissector, known as Party in the back and Business up front. They are both in 3C Max Terra compound, meaning that they are quite soft but still have good rolling capabilities. The Assegai has really good grip, and I really like that it has intermediate knobs between the center and the side knobs, so if you lean the bike you don't get a sudden loss of traction. The Dissector reassembles a lighter version of the Minion DHR2 tire. It rolls fast and provides decent grip. The Dissector on the back seems to be wearing a bit faster, but I really enjoy its performance. As mountain bike geometry has evolved, the Jeffsy follows the trend of being long, low and slack. The head tube angle is 66 degrees, and I think that it's perfect for a balance between steering agility and steep downhill stability. It has a long front center, steep seat tube, long chainstay and wheelbase, which makes it for a comfortable all-day long pedaling platform. Overall, the geometry feels very balanced and good both for going up and down, but definitely aimed at rough downhill riding or aggressive trail. To start with the bad, it is a heavy and plush bike, no doubt about that. On mellow trails, it definitely feels overbiked. It doesn't reward standing up and pedaling hard. You will lose and use a ton of energy to sprint. It's not a light cross-country rig. It's also less poppy with the coil setup and a bit more difficult to get airborne. What do I dislike about the Jeffsy? E13 components. I have been disappointed with all of them apart from the chain guide, which I installed as an extra part. Proprietary water bottle, it rattles a little bit and it's quite expensive. It's not a game changer, but I would prefer a normal one. Riding switchbacks is difficult with a longer bike, so learning how to endo could be a good idea. And then hard pedaling out of the saddle takes a ton of energy on this bike. Having said that, it is a beast of a bike. It has a very beefy looking frame, and in combination with the coil suspension it smashes through rough trails with rock gardens, roots and gnar, and feels very stable on jumps. The Jeffsy is an all mountain bike category, meaning that it is very efficient for steady smooth pedaling uphill and also tackling technical climbs, but it excels on descents and to me feels more like an enduro bike. It rewards an active and dynamic riding style, with shifting your weight around the bike and responding to the terrain properly. You may want to push hard into berms, pump on the undulations, and it will reward you with extra momentum. For most of the trails around Denmark where I ride, it feels like being overbiked, and it's more capable than I'm able to push it with my riding ability. But I still prefer this setup over a lighter bike, and I like that it gives me more confidence to try tricky sections and improve my riding by pushing my limits. Also, the modern geometry feels very balanced and comfortable for long days in the saddle, and I love the look of the Jeffsy, especially with the coil shock, and it's perfectly suited for the coil conversion because of the progressive suspension design. One thing is for sure, it's a great time to be a mountain biker.